Elio guys, and welcome back. Hopefully everyone's doing well out there today. And of course with this video we have our latest and greatest Nat 5, aka I believe it's Elphaba. If I slaughtered that and you're new around here, well, congratulations, welcome to the channel. But anyways, let's go and start off with the fire one. And a quick notice here, I do believe Hohenheim has been kicked out of the Heroes Festival, and now we have Elphaba in her place. But I really wish that they would separate this in general, even though I know they've made some changes to the whole Heroes Festival and Astromon selection process. It's just there's too many Astromon, and I believe it's Belial, I keep getting her name wrong, who's slightly, right below from Elphaba. I've only literally pulled one. I've maybe chosen one because of a card that was given. That's because the pool is so diluted and I get the same Astromons over and over. But anyways, just want to give that spiel in case you are interested in pulling her after this review, of course. Anyways, we're going to start off here with the fire type, who at level 60, of course, is an attacker type, coming in with 28k HP, 4k attack, and then 2.6k defense. Pretty standard stat distribution for Nat 5. Defense could leave more to be desired, but this is RGB2. And let's go and take a look at her skills. So if I go this route, it's going to be easier for me. So before we get into the thick of it here, let's start off with her variant skill, which goes for all of the Astromon in general here. She has Fighting Spirit, which increases allies' attack power by 40 to 45%. This is useful, especially towards the beginning of the game, but later on it's not super necessary, but it's also not the worst variant leader skill in the game. So if you pull her variant, feel free to use it until you either get something better or kind of dependent on your party composition here. Anyway, starting off with her 3-star skill, she has Lethal Strike, which is great for high defense mons, and of course Apophis / the Dimensional Dungeon, depending on where you're at with that content. And then for the 5-star skill, which it also indicates here in the description, that it's an AoE and she has a 50% Predator. So kind of a wave clearer-ish with that Predator, but mainly here for the Lethal Strike. So depending on Apophis's level, this could be like a good first sword mon, at least in one man's opinion here. But let's take a look at these books. So Lethal Strike gets a 20% damage increase, while Predator receives a 25% damage increase, if I'm correct. Not bad. Just wouldn't really throw books in there either. 4k attack stat is pretty chunky too, so you could potentially use her maybe on a second sword of Apophis. However, my only fear is just her getting a whole bunch of orbs and getting that 5-star skill off more than Lethal Strike. So if you pull her, she's not bad to use even at Evo 2, especially if you're trying to fill in slots depending on what content that you're doing that specifically involves fighting Astromon or fighting enemies with high defense. Moving on to the water one here, I will say, by the way, her design is awesome. It's definitely super cool. It has a slight little gothic vibe to it. Reminds me of what's her name from Resident Evil 8, even though she's not the first character in a game to represent that. Lady D is her name. But anyways, back to it. So we have the water version here, who's also an attacker type. She's coming in with 25k HP, 3.9k attack, and then 2.6k defense. Slightly less HP and attack than the fire one, even though they're technically RGB at this point in time. A bit weird. Let's take a look at the skills though. So 3-star skill is Battle Rush. This is great because there's some self-sustain with her being able to not only gather up some more HP when she takes damage, but also SP. I've been over the whole spiel about morale boost, so I'm not going to go there with it. And then for the 5-star skill is 90% puncture. If you're new to the game, puncture, as the description says right here, ignores the enemy's defense by 90%. Pretty chunky. Especially since newer players get Fire Drakka. This is very similar to Fire Drakka, just basically water and without the team morale boost here. So this is straight up a wave clearer. You could also use her, I want to say, in the Elemental Tower of Chaos if you haven't cleared that out yet, which, spoiler alert, I haven't cleared out any of them. You guys might think I'm kidding. Maybe one day I'll show you, but I literally just haven't cleared out any of them. It would be nice to have some variant gleams here, but also I'm just a casual guy playing the game, dude. I'll get to it one day. Maybe one day, but yeah. Through and through, just a wave clearer. You could also run her in, whatever that you do for the stones. I keep getting confused because you have like the Dimensional Dungeon, Dimensional Golems, Dimensional this, Dimensional that. There's like 85 different dimensional things here. But let's go and take a look at the skill book. So for Battle Rush, she receives a 25% damage boost, and it goes up to 25% for both HP and SP, which is always great. puncture receives a 20% damage boost, and it goes up to 100% if you get lucky with her books. Not necessarily a game changer, but I guess if you're slamming her and you're like, dude, this right here is my peanut butter and jelly, I could see investment with that, but already 90% I think is perfectly fine. I mean, 100% puncture, it is definitely amazing. I don't have any mons with 100% puncture, but even 90% is fine. So, I mean, she's a suitable wave clearer if you happen to pull multiple copies of her. If not, Fire Draka comes around, and Fire Draka has been in the game since feels like 1947. So you could get her to Evo 3 a lot quicker than Elphaba, at least in one man's opinion. All right, and then moving down the list here, we do have the wood version of Elphaba, who is a balance type, coming in with 30k HP, 3.6k attack, and then about 3k defense. Okay. That stat distribution's fair. I really have no complaints with that, even though they love to do the wood mons very, very dirty, but it is what it is. Anyways, for her 3-star skill, 80% chance for curse, and that's 3 stacks of curse for 2 turns. Not bad whatsoever. And then she has curse of immortality for her 5-star skill, grants a 90% chance to inflict 2 stacks of curse of immortality upon the enemy for 2 turns. Blah 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 blah, does HP damage equal to 24% of attack power, and does not get removed by fulminating curse. So as the skill implies right here, this would be a good mashup or mix up with, I do believe it's Fire Hades, Dark Hades. There is another 5-star Astromon. Is it Yeanoa that has curse? Is it Light Yeanoa? One of those have curse, but essentially if you have one Astromon in your team with fulminating curse, you want to kind of pair them up with other mons with curse of immortality, because you don't want fulminating curse go off every single turn if you happen to go the curse route, because you can't get any stacks off, so you can't maximize the damage of all those curse stacks being applied to the enemy. That's the gist of it here. So there's more utility, more access to other curse mons if you can pull them, that is. If you can pull them. So I mean, I'm down with that. Her attack stat, 3.6k isn't bad whatsoever, and with her defense already being at 3k, you could really kind of push and maximize that attack without compromising in terms of her defense and HP. So I think her stat distribution with this curse is awesome if you decide to use curse in whatever content that you do. I do believe Apophis is where I use it at least on the first sword. Outside of that, I haven't really tested it anywhere else, but that's where I use it if you're curious. So taking a look at the 3-star curse, that gets a 20% damage boost, and it goes up to 3 turns. Once again, 80% chance with 3 curse stacks. Then for her 5-star curse of immortality, that receives a 25% damage boost, and it goes up to 3 turns as well. Not bad book-wise. It's just, once again, you need 8 Nat 5 books if you have terrible RNG to get those last big old boosts, which chances are the orange isn't worth the squeeze, at least for the RGB. Moving right along though, we do have another attacker type version of Elphaba for the light version of her. What is up with, they're just all attackers? Like, what's going on here? Oh, let's look at the variant. Yep, that is anime waifu if I've seen it, dude. 100% anime waifu. Anyway, so let's go ahead and take a look at these stats. So for her HP, she is sitting at 29k. Her attack stat is 3.9k, and then her defense stat is almost 3k flat. Beautiful. Really good stat distribution. Like, that is basically the balanced version that we just saw here of the wood one, but with more attack, and she's light, so getting crit damage on this baby girl is going to be nothing. I'm down, dude. I'm down. So let me go over here to the skill books. Both 3 and 5-star skills, as I talked about previously. For the fire one, I do believe Lethal Strike, Apophis, the Dimensional Dungeon to get some of those lovely void crystals is where she's going to shine and excel at. This does act as a good slot holder or a good replacement slot for, I believe it's one of the Midsummer Mihos. Not the dark one, but I think there's another Midsummer Miho, maybe the wood one, even though this is a different element. But this is just more tools for the arsenal in terms of hitting Apophis and the Dimensional Dungeon. And with that attack stat, as stated before, I think that's great. So she's just another good asset depending on that content of high defense Astromon. If you want to bring her in PvP, she may be viable there too. Just really depends on what you're up against. But I definitely give this light Astromon a smiley face at the very, very minimum. So the 3-star version of Lethal Strike does get a 20% damage boost, and then the 5-star version receives a 25% damage boost if my math is correct. A little bit lackluster. I mean, it's more damage, but there's no real big jumps, because remember the 5-star version is AoE too, but if I pulled her, would I be mad? If I can't get her to Evo 3, of course I would be mad, but if I can, nah dude, I think she's great. Alright, and then last but not least here, she kind of looks, well, she kind of reminds me of Dark Snow White here, but we do have the dark version of Elphaba, who's a defender type, coming in with 28k HP, 2.8k attack, and then 3.8k defense. I mean, the name is Defender, so it should be implied that she has a whole bunch of defense, which she does. HP could be a little bit higher, but it is what it is. I don't know why her attack stat's almost 3k. I just review monsters in this game here. But taking a look at the 3-star skill, she has damage reduction, which reduces damage received by all allies. Keep in mind, this is for everybody on the squad by 15% for 1 turn. I know that's low, but 15% over time can add up a lot, and we haven't even taken a look at the skill books yet, so we already have some form of damage mitigation right there, and I'm curious to see how that would work with something like maybe Barb Taunt if you had another Ashamon on your group. And then for her 5-star skill, she has immunity, which removes all negative effects from all allies participating in battle and grants them immunity for 3 turns, so you can't debuff them for that duration, and it kind of cleanses those too. Keep in mind though, she does not heal. This is purely damage orientated, so she could be a little bit flexible in the damage department, though obviously some damage mitigation would be fine too. So a more balanced approach, I guess gem wise, may be it, unless you have some spicy attack gems. But yeah, this is full on just a defensive mon. There's really no other application I could think of outside of that, especially in PvE where you would need all that damage mitigation, unless maybe the last part of the Void Dungeon with Balzac. Maybe that's about it, but outside of that, dude, I mean, this is purely just a PvP defense mon, and you know, I think I would be interested in having her too if I ever got the chance to pull her here. Oh yeah, and right before I give you guys my final take on it, let's take a look at the skill books real quick for the dark version of Elphaba. So damage reduction receives a 15% damage boost. It goes up to 20% and for 2 turns, if I'm reading that correctly. Okay, and then immunity receives a 20% damage boost and goes up to 4 turns. So if you can roll books, I guess, into that 3-star skill, that would be optimal here. The immunity extension is great, maybe more damage is great, but it's not going to be a super big game changer as that lovely damage reduction. But that's pretty much it for the review of Elphaba, you guys. As always, right before I go, I'll give you one man's little pseudo tier list of what I think about the Elphabas, and we're going to start off with the fire one and obviously end with the dark one. So the fire one, I would say at this point in time, probably a good solid A to B tier. I'm leaning more towards maybe the back end of A for sure, just because of that lethal strike. Predator is useful for Apophis, especially in regards to the first sword, but it is what it is. So I would say probably end of A tier, at least at this point in time. Following up with that, with the water one, wave clear. We have plenty of wave clears. This mon is Hero Fest exclusive, if I am recalling that correctly, meaning she's going to naturally be harder to Evo 3, even more so than something like Fire Draka. So she gets a B tier in my opinion, because she's not super you know, she's not super accessible throughout the game for the entire game. You can't just wait until she comes around and get her like Fire Draka for a rebirth. You have to pray to the gods that you can pull multiple copies, or there's a whole bunch of investment just to get her to Evo 3. So B tier for that one. The wood one, curses come a long way here, but once again, I would probably have to go with maybe once again, it's kind of hard. Maybe top of B tier, and I only give it top of B tier and not A tier because you have to have other curse mons to make curse viable. And I don't know how many people have a whole bunch of Evo 3 other curse Nat 5s laying around here, but you know, with the recent Primal Festival, hopefully you have gotten access to more curse mons if you decide to use it. And that's a whole nother spiel with if you decide to use curse in the first place. Following in after that though, the light version of Elphaba, definitely S tier. Double lethal strike. I mean, if you can pull it and obviously get her to Evo 3, that would be optimal, but double lethal strike, say no more, fam. Like, say no more. And then last but not least, the dark one, damage reduction plus immunity is going to be an interesting combination. Won't be a super big game changer in regards to PvP. I could be wrong here, but it could be annoying enough to make a difference, especially at the top end. So I'm going to go ahead and say that she's S tier too. you can kind of separate it. I mean, the light one's more PvE orientated, not so much PvP, while the dark one is 100% PvP, maybe Balzac if you need it, or depending on the situation, because damage reduction for the entire squad, I mean, holy crap. And yeah, you guys, that's pretty much it, at least of one man's opinion of Elphaba. Feel free leaving the comments below about what you guys think about her, if you're going to go for her, if you're praying to the guys that you can finally pick her, especially since they have kind of tweaked the whole hero selection or Astromon summoning process for the game. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Happy pulling, you guys, and peace out.